Good afternoon. We are live. It is 1:01 p.m. Central Standard Time, 7:01 GMT in the UK. The Nomad Tech Project with Sam and Joe, the best podcast you've never heard of. And if you're listening to the stream or watching the stream, and how would you? It started literally like 4 seconds ago. So you have to get ready to go, and we're a little early. We have a special guest, a very busy man, decided to spend an hour with us. Unfortunately, he's decided to dive in and lose an hour he'll never get back to spend some time with us here. It's Adam Doud from the Benefit of the Doud podcast. You know him, you love him. He's awesome. Welcome to the show, Adam. Thanks for stopping by, sir.
Thanks for having me. It's fun. And yeah, I mean, I'm always down to pod, so you just call.
Absolutely. So yeah, the last time we spoke, we were on a different show, the Across the Podcast with Sam and Matt, and we had a great time. And it had Cliff on the show, and I've been a big fan of your show. I've listened. I am a religious follower of the Benefit of the Doud podcast.
I've seen you pop in there every now and then when we're live. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just, I just like the structure. And I remember when we were first on the other show, you'd given us some really good feedback about how to kind of do the podcast, and nobody really had ever really offered any kind of feedback. So that was very much appreciated. And also, Cliff sent me some gear. So that was really nice of him. I really appreciate that. So thanks for having us. Let you come on, and we're going to talk right into CES. I saw you were there, and how was the show? And have you fully recovered from your trip to Vegas?
It's a lot of walking, isn't it?
It was a lot of walking. 55,000 steps over 4 days.
Nice.
Also clocked about 50 hours over those 4 days. So that's fairly typical CES fare, honestly.
Okay.
You know, you wake up, you leave the hotel at 8 o'clock, and you get home maybe around 11, give or take, if it's an early night. But yeah, so it was great. I was there for Slash Gear, and I was there at the behest of VW, who was launching their new electric ID7 new electric vehicle, which was a soft launch. They didn't let us open any doors, which was kind of weird, I'll be honest. But yeah, it was fun. And if I had followed the itinerary that VW gave me, it would have been a super chill week. It would have been like, like get in on Tuesday, here's the car, let's have a couple dinners, and then, go home on Friday. But, naturally, me being the workaholic that I am, I stacked myself like, oh, we're not doing anything on Wednesday? Well, I am. Oh, we're not doing anything on Thursday? Well, I am. Right. In fact, I mean, like, I was crawling the show floor up until about 2 hours before my plane took off. So I was right to the wire. Was wheeling and dealing and meeting people, and it wasn't really that sexy. I just tried to make it sound,
just talking to folks.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, and that's great. So you got to see some of your compatriots and some colleagues in the tech space. So that's always a lot of fun too. I would think that for me, the tech would be great, but also just finally actually meeting face to face with some of the folks that we've had on our show would be fantastic. I think I would kind of enjoy the social aspect almost as much as I'd like some of the tech as well.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I met some people for the first time. I met some people, reacquainted myself after it's been like 3 years since I've seen anybody.
Right.
So it was, and we got together a lot at the showcases. Like there's three showcases that happen on the week of CES. There's CES Unveiled, which is usually on like the first media day. Fun fact about that one, that was actually in my hotel and I didn't go to it because just because it's in your hotel doesn't mean it's close.
Right.
By the time I realized like where it was probably a half an hour's worth of walking and it closed in half an hour. So I decided not to go. And then there's PepCom, which is like about halfway through the week. And then there's Showstoppers, which is like usually the last big like showcase show. And that's for like companies that maybe they're exhibiting at the show, maybe they're not. But it's kind of like a really focused like media and presenters and nobody else. It's not for purchasers. It's not for analysts. It's just media and companies.
Oh, okay.
So so typically that's where we were doing most of our meetups. And I'm like I said, I met a lot of people for the first time while I was there, like in person, that I've been working with for years. So go figure.
Absolutely. Well, and that's just, I mean, and in normal circumstances, less COVID, we probably wouldn't have had to worry about that. You would have probably saw those people because you would have been going every year, like every other convention, right? But that whole situation kind of thrown, and I don't think everything's fully recovered, because I've had some reports that people said that it was really close, like it was 90%. To where it was probably it was pretty busy, but it wasn't exactly the same level of energy and presenters, and it's still not 100% there. Maybe it might take another year or two for folks to engage totally back to pre.
Yeah, just from like a crowd standpoint, it was not as crowded as it had been in the past, which isn't to say that it wasn't crowded. There were still a couple of times that it was just like, get out of my way, folks. Try to get through here.
Right.
But for the most part, going from like booth to booth, it wasn't as packed as it typically was. So I burned through the Venetian in like 3 hours. It was amazing. Like I was able to just oh, here's you, oh, here's you, oh, here's you, and just get out of there. So that was kind of cool. So I think it'll probably be another year or two before we're quite back to where we used to be.
Yeah. So was there any notable absences that you had like oh, I would have surprised, or maybe ones that people that maybe didn't bring their A game to the show? They were just kind of there, but you can kind of like, oh, usually these guys kind of bring a lot more noise, and this year it seems to be a little bit
other than us,
subdued,
obviously,
or no shows completely. They just didn't show up at all.
Other than us.
Okay, so full disclosure, I've only been to CES 3 times, so it's not like I really have my thumb on the pulse of CES, as it were. I mean, if you want to talk to the veterans, they'll be able to tell you much more than I do. So but I mean, like, it seemed like there were typically a lot of the bigger brands like the Qualcomms and the Googles and the TCLs, they'll usually have like large gatherings of parties, and I know that there were a couple of those that I couldn't go to because I was kind of beholden to VW, and VW had a thing every night. So so there was that, but I would say like some of the like one of the parties that I heard of was like actually on a football field. So
TCL, I knew they did some partnership with the NFL, so I think they were at like where the Raiders play. I think they were. I think so. So so there was that, but like a lot of the other ones seemed to be a lot more chill, a lot more reserved, and a lot more like I guess we're doing a thing. You can come. It wasn't like hear ye. We're all come one, come all. Right? Yeah,
exactly.
Well, and I guess the question is with the VW thing. I know, and if there's anything you can't describe or disclose, that's fine. But
no, I'm past embargoes now.
Like, how did VW? Like, why VW? Do you own one? Have you had a relationship with them? I'm guessing just like how did that?
It was a Slash Gear thing.
Different. Yeah, okay. Slash Gear.
Yes. Gotcha. Okay. Slash Gear is a very automotive focused website. So like we do a lot of consumer tech, but a lot of our stuff is cars and first drives and car reviews and stuff like that. So that relationship came from VW, and I told Chris Davies is one of my bosses there, and he was the one that asked me if I wanted to go, and I'm like, you realize I'm like the least car guy on this entire team, right?
Gotcha.
And I think my main qualification was I was also one of the ones that wasn't sick of CES yet. So, it was a match made in heaven, obviously. So like, that's where that relationship came from. Okay. And it was fun. And like VW put on a really good little junket there, which was, it was fun. They had a fleet of VW cars to take you places if you needed to. And they had like this command center that had like, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And, you could like check in there, and they had Wi-Fi and stuff. So like they were not shy with their budget, but yeah.
That's
so
what you like.
Exactly. And so they launched their new ID7, which was an electric sedan, which I thought was an interesting choice considering like, the US market is much more, SUV crossover truck focused. Right. So, and this is a worldwide launch. So it's going to be China, Europe and North America. So it's going to be everywhere. So I just thought it was kind of a weird choice that they went sedan, but their CEO, it wasn't their CEO. It was like their head of motor. I don't remember what his title was, but
motor engineering or something like maybe or development or R&D.
Yeah, something like that. VP
Gotcha.
of product or whatever. Anyway, so he's like, yeah, we don't think the sedan is dead. I'm like, you're wrong, but okay.
Right.
But I mean, this is a sedan that gets like 700 kilometers of range, which is like 430 miles on a single charge. So that in and of itself is impressive. And sedans are naturally more aerodynamic than SUVs and crossovers, and they're lighter, so they can get that kind of range. So I mean, there's definitely something to be said. And not to mention, when you look at all the sexy EVs that are out there right now, you're looking at Teslas, you're looking at the Lucid Air, you're looking at more Teslas, and those are all sedans.
Don't get Sam started on Teslas.
No,
don't get Sam
it has
started.
nothing to do with Tesla. It just has to do with just EVs in general. I guess I'm still the old school guy, so I'm still Ford Mustang, manual transmission. I'm not there yet, but also too because I don't live in a major metropolitan area, so for me, it doesn't really work, So right. And my thing is this: if I'm dropping $100,000 on a car, it ain't gonna be a Tesla. It's just
no. That's fair. That's very fair.
And the funny thing is now that they've had people who I guess bought whether Model 3s or Model Ys or whatever, and now they had this price drop. I'm like, welcome to every phone buyer you've ever met, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Hey man, so I know it's $20,000. I realize it's not a couple $100, but that's what happens when you're on the bleeding edge of tech, right? You realize that. They're not going to sell as many cars when they have that kind of price point. And they're going to have to adjust that down. And unfortunately, you're an early adopter, which if you're a Tesla buyer, you still kind of are, really. I mean, you're at, you may get jammed in on that, and you just kind of have to deal with it.
And Tesla prices have gone up too. It's not like they've exclusively gone down. Like, there's probably people that bought a Model Y for $50,000 and then it turned out to be $75,000 the next week. I mean, that happens too.
Dealership adjustments, what they call them, where you go in there and it's like, oh yeah, you want to buy a Mustang Mach-E? Yeah, it's $130,000. It's like, wait a minute, the MSRP is $95,000. Yeah, we have dealership adjustments. Like, okay, you're just basically padding $40,000 because it's popular. Yeah, pretty much that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. See, I was hoping while I was there that like one of the VW execs would be like, by the way, take this card into a VW dealership and they'll just give you the best price. Whatever whatever you. I was really hoping that one of them would slip me that card, but nobody slipped me that card, unfortunately. Which is funny because my wife and I are shopping for a car right now, and our front runner is an ID4. Okay. So that's probably not going to happen like anytime before summer, because there's a couple of EVs coming out from Chevy that we want to take a look at, and they're not coming out until summer. Right. So there's we're very much slow rolling the EV purchase, but I test drove a Tesla and it was very nice. And since Elon Musk bought Twitter, I am never buying a Tesla. So because I have learned exactly what kind of exactly what kind of human being that dude is, and I'm voting with my wallet right there.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because then you've had other people who, and they will be for not mentioned in this podcast, obviously, but that said we're gonna do all this stuff when this Elon Musk thing comes, and like kind of still here, right? So okay. Yeah. I mean, you have to. I mean, at that point, and also at least if you're gonna get into the EV space now, that's an easier stand to take because now I think other car manufacturers, Mercedes, Volkswagen, Hyundai. Yeah. I mean, I saw the Ioniq 5 that has the 90-degree wheels.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Can go.
Yeah, that's neat.
I was like, wow, more parallel parking for you guys, for all you people who couldn't parallel park. There you go, and it actually can drive like at a 45 oblique, like kind of that's kind of slick. I'm like, I like that.
And I mean, honestly,
I need that.
Look at the writing on the wall. That's where we're headed. We're headed towards an electrified future, kicking and screaming, probably. But like that's just kind of where things are headed. But at the same time, I also thought it would be kind of cool. What if Volkswagen said, instead of flying you home, we'll give you an ID4, you could just road trip home.
Yeah.
And I'm okay. Sorry, lend you an ID4,
right.
and
we want the car back at him. Oh, okay.
And like, wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be a fun story to write? So I was doing some research, and from Las Vegas to Chicago, it's about a 25-hour drive, something like that. Okay. But I went to a website where you can, calculate. It'll give you directions based on charging stations. So you drive this far, you charge for half an hour. You drive this far, you drive for another hour. Stuff like that. Right. And it would be 49 hours to get back from Las Vegas, and that's if I drove like wall to wall, which I'm not going to do.
Right.
It was probably going to be like a 3 or 4 day adventure getting home, as opposed to like 2 in a gas powered car, which is like, that's such a huge difference still. Like,
Massive.
even where we are today, it's still a huge difference. Like, I think with a Tesla, it probably wouldn't be that long because of the number of superchargers and because of the charging speeds that are possible, but I don't think it would be that much less, to be honest.
Right. And I think, and that's been my argument the whole time. It's like, if you're doing local driving, like in the Chicago or like in St. Louis or, then really, and then range becomes really not relevant, because most Americans commuting, the average is about 30 to 36 miles a day to commute back and forth. Now for me, it's about 100, just because I live a little farther south of St. Louis from where I work, which is downtown. But if you're really doing a commuting style thing, where you're doing a lot of stop and go, fairly close suburban kind of, like if you live in the west suburb of Chicago, do you need a 400-mile range car?
No,
probably not, because you're just going to drive to work, park it there, which will probably have a charger, which our bank does now, has a couple, and then charge it home, right? And you just jaunt a little bit here. I will tell you that when I've trailed long distances, like driving to like Mississippi or driving to like some places in Colorado, you don't see any electrical vehicles on the road.
Oh no,
no way.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's again. So that's been my thing. If infrastructure and charging speeds and battery become more of a thing, but if you're doing any kind of longer commutes, it just isn't practical. Maybe in 10 years, the infrastructure starts to get there. But here's the always thing I say: you can put all the charging stations you want, but where's the electricity going to come from?
Right. Oh, that's
you got to generate it, and
question.
So I don't know how we're going to do that. That becomes a real sore subject, because in the United States, we're talking like possibly nuclear power. Definitely will do coal, because it's not ecologically friendly. So that becomes a lot more of an infrastructure challenge. And in the UK, it's about the size of what? Virginia? No problem. As you can tell, driving from Las Vegas to Chicago, which isn't even the length of the United States, still almost took you 3.5 days. The United States is massive physically. And so it's like, there's some challenges there.
USA. So actually, I was going to ask Joe, like, what's the take on EVs over on your side of the pond? Like, are you seeing any type of like the same kind of adoption over here, or are you still?
Yeah, I see quite a lot.
Yeah,
I do see quite a lot. Yeah, like literally, my neighbour's got an MG, an EV MG.
Nice.
There's a few Teslas on my road. Yeah, they're pretty popular. I mean, in the UK, it's not as long distance to drive, to be fair. So they haven't got the issues you've got.
But it's also colder.
Right.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah, because that's another issue with the batteries.
Right. Yeah,
absolutely.
I was reading a lot of the other day. Some folks rented an EV, rented a Tesla because they just wanted to try it out, and they were going from. It was only a couple of 100 miles, but they ended up having to charge like 6 times because it was like so cold outside.
Yeah.
So it was kind of,
I mean, I have a Prius.
That's not
so
good.
That was my hybrid, and I will tell you that in the summertime, if I drove conservatively, I could get 58 to 60 miles per gallon on it. In the wintertime, it was definitely like more in the 38 to 45 range. You could definitely tell with the battery degradation with cold weather. Then you have a problem even charging it. Some of these Tesla owners, when they had that real bad cold snap a couple of weeks ago in the United States, there were people that their car couldn't get to temperature enough to even charge. And the guy was like, he was going to go to his parents' house for Christmas, and it was that really cold snap, and he couldn't charge the car because it wouldn't charge. It just was like, he plugged it in all night and didn't charge, and finally just died. He goes, well, I guess I'm not going to my parents, and wound up having to stay home because
standing out there with a hairdryer.
Right. And it just cracks me up.
No, he's done it on purpose. He didn't want to go his parents.
$100,000 car. Don't you have a garage? Like, they're just parking on the street. I'm like, it's great in the summertime, but if you live in Chicago, it gets super, super cold. And if you have that kind of a vehicle, you're stuck like Chuck, man. You ain't going nowhere with that car if the charging is a problem. So, well,
that's the other thing I told my wife is we're not getting an EV until we can park a car in the garage, because we haven't parked in our garage in 6 years.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people have that issue because that becomes a new place to store your stuff, right? It gets overrun. You're like,
I was going to say, does it function as a garage or?
No,
it functions as you store it.
Yeah,
right. We're just having to pay for it. Like, we could lease it out to somebody else. Maybe we can leverage a couple of dollars here and there.
There you go. Yeah.
So, I guess at the show, did you see any tech that really just kind of like, wow, that's pretty amazing? Like, either because remember there's not just stuff that's coming to market, right? We still have some developmental and kind of aspirational kind of tech. What was like the one or two things that was like, whoa, that's that's pretty wild. Like, okay, I can dig that. That's
take my money.
I would say 3 things. The first thing that I saw was Qualcomm's satellite. The Qualcomm took a bunch of us on a bus out into the middle of a desert and showed off their new Qualcomm satellite technology, which I don't know if you guys are familiar, but for those who are watching, basically it's kind of like remember when Apple announced the iPhone. They said, you can, if you're out in the middle of the woods and you have no cell service, you can send a message for help, and using satellites. And so Qualcomm said that and said, "Hold my beer." And Qualcomm satellite is a way to communicate with this Qualcomm partnered with Iridium, who has like a whole network of satellites in low Earth orbit. And you can enable not only emergency messaging, but you can do 2-way text messaging with anybody from anywhere on the planet. So you can be out in the middle of the ocean and you could text your mom, "Wish you were here," and she'll get it like a normal text message.
That's impressive.
Now there are caveats. So
okay.
So
yeah, here it can't all be perfect. There's got to be something going on here. Yeah.
So Qualcomm is doing the very Android thing by saying, so we're going to give OEMs this capability, and what they do with it is up to them. So like you will always be able to, this is all built into the X70 modem, which is built into the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor. So any phone that comes out with that particular processor has this capability. Now, the first caveat is, like I said, they're doing the Android thing, saying you have the capability. It's how it depends on how you want to implement it, Xiaomi, whether or not, someone can do it. Emergency messaging will always work because Qualcomm also partnered with Garmin, who has like an in-reach service that is built into some of their GPS services for like $10 a month. You can send emergency messages through your Garmin GPS if you get lost or whatever,
or stranded, or need medical assistance if you're out in a remote area. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. So Qualcomm has that infrastructure, like the call centers and everything is set up. Wow, I just switched over the comments tab. I didn't realize we had so many people in here. Hi.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, so there's that. That's the first caveat. The second caveat is that the modem has the hardware that's needed to communicate with satellites, but the phone needs to have the radio equipment, the radio frequency equipment itself. So it's like a separate radio that they need. I want to say it's L-band frequency. I remember that. I want to say it's like 16,100 megahertz, something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's not a part of a standard cell phone package. So like you'd basically have to build in like a separate radio in order to communicate in that spectrum in order to enable this messaging.
Okay.
And then the third part is, just because everybody has emergency capability doesn't mean that every phone is going to have this, because it's going to depend on how the carrier or how the OEM implements it. So there's probably going to be a cost to it. There's probably going to be, some type of, software shenanigans that are going to have to happen in order to do this. So we don't know. We'll probably see it sometime around the second half of 2023. We'll start to see the first phones rolling out. So the S23 Ultra is not going to have it. Trying to think of other phones that are coming out before the first half. Probably Moto phones. There'll probably be some Moto phones that won't have it. So there's like 3 minor caveats there, but I mean, I have to think within 2 to 3 years, this is probably going to be a standard thing.
Definitely, yeah.
And at least for high-end phones. And like the one statistic that they tossed at us, which was kind of remarkable, but actually makes sense when you think about it, is 85% of the globe does not have any cellular connectivity at all.
Right.
So 70% of that is water. So that's, that kind of makes sense. The last 15% is Northern Canada and Siberia and like the middle of the Mojave Desert and stuff like that, so it really makes sense when it's only about 15% of like land mass that doesn't have signal. But I mean, this could literally be a lifesaver. And Apple's could too, But the main difference is that while Apple's messaging can take like minutes to send a pre-programmed message, Qualcomm's goes in seconds.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's really kind of cool. So, and again, the final caveat that I have to mention is this was a demo put on by Qualcomm. So let's see how it actually turns out once, commercial products are out there. That's what reviewers are going to be. I would imagine reviewers are going to be all over that the first time it comes out.
Absolutely. It's like the unpacking events, though, isn't it? The unpacking events makes the phone look amazing.
Yeah,
real world use doesn't quite match up.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
so,
Ibrahim's coming.
I was right. 1600 megahertz. Woohoo!
Yeah. So almost like it sounds almost like and I guess this shows like shortwave radio, right? So that kind of spectrum, it kind of seems like it kind of operates in that kind of like an old school shortwave radio spectrum, kind of like in picking up.
That may very well be.
I have no clue. It just sounds like 1600 megahertz. That sounds normal. I don't know.
That sounds like something a CB person would say. Let's do that. Okay.
That's cool. Yeah. Absolutely. So that's pretty. If they can actually implement that, I think you're right. That literally can be something that you can leverage emergency services and it's actually a life-saving function and tool that would be helpful. And wouldn't hurt if they can get it done and then across the board. That would be fantastic for a lot of folks.
And are there any doubts that at some point during Apple's presentation this coming September, there's going to be at least 2 minutes dedicated to the number of lives that have been saved by their world's first satellite communication?
Well, of course.
I have zero doubt that that's going to be.
Right.
And
it's par for the course.
And, I was chatting with another guy offline the one time, and I'm just like, now, there's a real good chance that OEMs are going to really screw this up for the first couple of years, but I think after that we'll probably be in good shape. But yeah, so that was the first thing. The next thing, I'm gonna go off the reservation a little bit because I bet everybody's been talking about the Yoga 9i, and that was like the third thing. But the second thing that I saw was a startup that actually wasn't at CES, but they're based in Las Vegas, and so they got a hold of me, and they are a startup. Shifting back to the EV conversation, that they're an EV rental company, so they have Kia Niros, I believe it is, that they can rent out to people, and their shtick is you go on the website, you order an EV, and they deliver it to you. They just bring it. I'm at the Venetian, I need an EV. They bring it to you. They get out, toss you the keys, and you go. And if that was the entire concept, we're not having this conversation.
Right.
But they are currently in phase 2 out of phase 4, where eventually, I believe actually later this year, they're going to have the capability of remote piloting these EVs to you when you summon them. So you summon an EV, they sit down in a gaming chair with a Logitech steering wheel, and I mean it's literally a Logitech steering wheel and pedals, and they have an Elgato Stream Deck that they use to like control, drive and stuff like that. And they are going to remote pilot the car to you. So a car is going to pull up with no driver in it. You're going to get in and go.
Wow.
That's
cool.
This is really cool, and I got to take a ride in a remotely piloted vehicle, which is the only time I've ever ridden in a car without a driver before, or without someone. So there was a safety driver, but he was not touching the wheel. But I gotta say, it was kind of eerie, kind of weird, but also kind of cool.
Disconcerting for me at first.
I was gonna say, like, the safety driver gives you a bit of reassurance.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You'd be like, whoa.
So at some point, I think they would be developed enough where that wouldn't. The safety driver. The whole point is to eliminate another occupant, right? So you don't have a valet or a driver. So at some point, you're going to have to get whatever that day is, right? Today we got the safety driver. Tomorrow, hey man, we're in phase 3, so you're getting a piloted. So
phase 3 is a safety monitor in a chase car with an emergency stop button. Like if anything starts to go absolutely BS crazy, they can hit the button like from the chase car, and then everybody will be fine. But then phase 4 is the full autonomy, like not autonomy, but the full remote piloted vehicle. They've got 6 cameras that they mounted all over the car. So like honestly, a remote pilot can see more than we can when we're driving. Right. And like I gotta say, like, they did some kind of like a kind of impressive maneuver. Like, there was a gap in between a couple of cones that the remote pilot maneuvered the car through, that I'm like, I'm not sure I would have gotten through that if I had been at the wheel. So they did an amazing job there. They've got a proprietary, hardware and software stack that they install into these cars that right now is about the size of a suitcase with a whole bunch of like spaghetti wires coming out of it. But I talked to the founder and the CEO, and he said within a couple of years they can probably get it down to about the size of like a portable hard drive. Wow. That they just kind of plug into the car and let it go. And this is the kind of thing that really, when you really stop and think about this kind of concept, the possibilities are endless.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm personally of, when I learned a few years back that, every, your car that you spend, like you said, $100,000 on sits idle for 23 hours every day. Right. Like, your car is just there doing nothing. And the Halo.car guy told me that I guess for every car sold in the United States, 8 parking spots have to be made for it. Wow. Or something like that. Which,
yeah, I guess it makes sense if you think about grocery stores, your work, anywhere else you'd have to drive. Yeah, there has to be a parking place for that.
And what it boils down to is this is not a sustainable model. Regardless of what you think you can do, there's only so much parking. And so like I'm kind of a proponent of like a massive, like if I were king, like I would begin this massive societal shift between like car ownership to car borrowership. Like, you need a car, you call one, you pay $200 a month, which is less than the car payment, but you pay $200 a month and you can just summon a car to you and it comes, you drive where you need it to go and you get out and it goes off to the next, fair or whatever. But I mean, that has to be a societal shift. I mean, that can't be like one plucky startup, I've got an idea.
But honestly, it makes a whole lot of sense if you think about it, especially, and I think if you can get Americans on board, it's going to have to be when it comes down to cost. Right? It's like, okay, you could buy this car and you can have a car payment, you can have insurance, you can have maintenance costs. However, now you have this community vehicle. Basically, if you need to go to a store, you just summon the car and it shows up and and you don't have to do anything. You tell it, I'm going to Walmart in wherever, and it will just go there. It'll wait there. Either that car waits or another car switches out. Somebody takes that one and the other one shows up. I'm curious to see how that's the logistics of that, because would the car wait for you? Does it give you 15 minutes? Or it's like, okay, well, if it's a certain amount of time, that car would disembark to pick up another fare of somebody leaving the Walmart to go to their house. And then how that network of cars would you have to wait, and that kind of thing.
And the other question, Sam, is will it be like Knight Rider? Will it talk to you?
No.
The car.
It'd be cool.
That would be awesome.
No, actually, yeah, it didn't talk to me. Now that I think about it, that would be kind of cool. But I mean, the idea is once they drop off the car, they kind of disconnect and they're no longer there, so there'd be nobody to talk to. But one other scenario that the CEO imagined was, let's say you have a company that wants to do this car delivery service but wants to defray costs. What they can do is they could potentially get people to buy their cars that have this hardware on board. And they can drive their car to the train and pull up an app and say, I'm going to be gone for the next 8 hours. You've got my car. Go.
Oh, and then like a loan lease kind of thing. It's like, okay, I'm not using it, so it can be used whenever. Yeah.
So a remote pilot could log in and take their car and go off to the,
But like you said,
a remote Uber, basically.
Right. And like you said, so the logistics and everything else can be completely, you can completely go off the rails and you can come up with any kind of model that works, and that model can be shifted and you can have different tiers. Like, do you want to, same company does all that stuff. We have the lead lease program. You could offset the cost of our subscription if you're willing to make your vehicle available for other occupants and riders, and you can kind of decide to buy in or not. If you just like, no, I'd rather just have it available for me and I don't want to leverage that, then cool. You have models and different kinds of ways of doing it. So
yeah, it's really exciting, and like the possibilities are endless. And I really hope that this company, I really hope that they break out. I hope they start like a really cool trend, because I'm on board and I want them to come to Chicago. So
someone massive will buy them.
I think long before they move to Chicago, they'll probably be bought up by Hertz or something.
Right.
And But in that case, good for them. Like, hey, you've
got
a great idea, and it's gonna earn you
brilliant.
a few $100 million.
Right. Uber are shitting themselves right now. Uber are shitting themselves.
Well, yeah, I mean, and here's the thing: it's like with Tesla, you can't actually expect if it really takes off, you can't be the only player in that space. Those days are over for a lot of these kinds of things. So Tesla should have assumed, and should have already, I'm sure they did, that companies who have 100 years of making vehicles would jump into this space at some point.
And they all are now.
And they're all in. With the exception of Toyota. They don't really, they may have stuff in, but I mean, Akira Toyota, the chairman of is still kind of like, I think there's some infrastructure challenges, but they're thinking about it, but you don't see a lot of the Toyota fully electric kind of stuff. They actually have the Toyota Mirai, which is the hydrogen leveraged vehicle that is in California. Now, honestly, I kind of wish that would be, I'm about Omnipath, right? They should have electrical vehicles. ICE is going to be a while as those vehicles kind of transition out. But I think that leveraging an actual hydrogen-based vehicle to work in, for other options for people who maybe live in more distance, that way you don't have to worry about Either we can have more than just the electrical vehicle option where you can still have zero emission and still have the same kind of options, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's so easy to like grow up in your bubble and like, why wouldn't you want an electric vehicle? Well, it takes me 4 hours to get to Walmart. That's why. I mean, there are a lot of people that enjoy that kind of lifestyle, and more power to them. They would need to be like hydrogen based or some other type of like renewable, sustainable, plentiful resource.
Right.
And that's the unicorn that we're all chasing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So and then the last thing, you had the third thing that you wanted to.
That has to be the Lenovo Yoga 9i, which is their dual screened laptop, which is it's so cool and it's so much fun, and I really, really want this thing to be amazing. and I think it will be. I got about probably 10 minutes to play with it. Just real quick, just for people that aren't familiar, imagine this is a laptop. So okay, so imagine this is a laptop. This is a screen. This is a screen. Oh God, I can't center it. I can't do.
Well, let's do that. There we go.
There we go. Yeah. All right. So this is a screen. This is a screen. Okay. Right. So you've got your basic thing here. In fact, you know what? I can even kind of like demonstrate it because I have a wide enough angle here. Perfect. So like you open up your thing. You got two screens here, and this is a screen down here. And if you do like an 8-finger tap, you can tap like this, and a virtual keyboard appears. Cool. Oh, and you can have the keyboard up here, and then down here is a gigantic trackpad, or you can pull the keyboard down, and up here you get some like widgets that Microsoft built. So it only does Outlook and stuff like that.
Right.
Or it also comes with a Bluetooth keyboard with a little flippy stand, like a little origami stand that you can stand up behind it. So now you've got your two screens like this and your Bluetooth keyboard down here. So, and you can type like, or you can do that, and you got your keyboard down here if you're like a coder or something like that.
Right.
And then like the last particular posture, to use the Surface parlance, is if you take the Bluetooth keyboard, it magnetically attaches to the bottom screen, and the same thing happens. Like if you put it up here, then down here is a giant trackpad, or if you put it down here, then up here you've got your widgets, but it's like a physical keyboard that you can type on. I am so excited for this thing.
Yeah, the problem is, first thing I saw is like, oh, there's the Surface Neo. There it is. Actually,
that's basically what it is. Yeah,
and I'm all in because I was gonna buy one with the Duo. Like obviously I'm a Duo fan, but the Neo just never happened. But I saw that Lenovo, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm in.
It's some good stuff. Now, there were a couple of, as always, there's a couple of caveats. When I did my review of the ThinkPad Fold X1, the first generation one, that too came with a Bluetooth keyboard. And that Bluetooth keyboard was not awesome. And it wasn't just like the fact that it was small. I was okay with the fact that it was small, but when you were typing with it, it had a propensity to either drop characters or like double up characters. Wow. So you'd be like, I think this is the most amazing keyboard ever, So, and
sounds like me typing.
That got super frustrating after a while. So there's that. I think that could possibly be an Achilles heel. And I actually asked Lenovo specifically about that and said, what have you done to make sure that doesn't happen. They're like, well, that was 2 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, that's not a great answer.
So what have you done?
Right. So
not much.
Not a lot, as it turns out. So anyway, so there's that. And then like the other thing, like when I had the keyboard attached to here, I was messing around with the window up here, and they have like a little UI queue that lets you move stuff from one window to the next. Okay. So when I moved a window into that UI queue, it like put it down below underneath the keyboard. I'm like, well, that's not handy.
Right. Now I can't get to it. Now I got to remove the keyboard to get to my UI. It's
pre-production software, so I'm not too worried about that one, but I really think that Bluetooth keyboard could potentially be an Achilles heel. So we'll cross our fingers and hope that everything is amazing.
And then also it still could go all the way back like 360, so it could go into like a more of a just a posture.
Yeah. Actually, I have this is the current generation of the Yoga 9i.
Okay.
Which does not have that. It's a normal,
laptop.
But but it does the thing. And it also the 9i also has this sound bar on the hinge, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's nice.
This one is actually really loud, like pleasantly loud. So I'm happy to see that made its way onto the 9i. I think the only thing that was missing was any type of like fingerprint reader. It has Windows Hello, so I believe the web camera does have the capability of like doing facial recognition, which like if you don't have biometric authentication on your computer, just GTFO, man.
Right.
But yeah, so I think it will have facial recognition, but no fingerprint reader, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, so my work computer we have to have that installed now. I mean, well, I've always used it as soon as I had it, but now it's been an initiative that across the entire system that you will leverage you can't SSO or passwords or single sign-ons or any of that stuff. None of that stuff. It's all biometrics, physical. You actually have a physical token or Windows Hello. You have to leverage some kind of biometric authentication. You cannot just use a password anymore. It doesn't work.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, that is becoming. I think that's becoming more of a standard now. I work in a sensitive more field than just like hanging out. So
yeah,
but it's good to see that they're like, no, we're not just doing that password thing anymore. That's going to go bye-bye. Which kind of bummed a lot of people at work out because they're old school. Like, I just like to use my password because I don't want to have to set up all those doohickeys and fingerprint scanners and look at my face. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna have a choice. Come.
So our payroll's like that.
Yeah, first year it's gonna be like you're gonna have to use something a little bit more robust than just a password now.
They're all like, I want to use my password. I don't want to do that facial recognition thing. Here, let me pick up your coffee for you.
Right. Face ID. Yeah, it's okay. I just don't want to have to do it everywhere, Adam. I mean, if I'm at home, I want to be lazy, but at work, I want to just go. I don't want you to do that.
So, okay.
You can't have my face. Don't take my face.
They have your face.
Apple has your face. It's fine.
Everyone has my face.
Everyone has your face.
So the slash thing, I was going to ask you about that. So how did that happen? You had worked out? I mean, how did that? Because when last time we talked, I don't think that was working. I don't think you were part of that team.
Oh no. That's a brand new thing. So as a freelancer, you tend to go where the work is. And as it happened when I ran out of work at the otr places, actually the OnePlus had sent me the OnePlus 10T in order to do a review for it. For a different publication. Well, my services were no longer required there, but at the same time, SlashGear did not have a OnePlus 10T. So I'm like, well, I could review it for you. And I've known Chris Davies for years, and so he and I were chatting offline. I'm like, I could do a review for you. He's like, okay, come on and go do it. So it was after an amazingly fast onboarding process, which like never happens. And I realized now as an editor there, boy, did I skip a lot of steps.
Right.
Like I skipped a lot of steps because like I'd been writing there for 2 months before I got my official introduction to the rest of the company, because like I was just doing like freelance reviewing this. Oh, you want to review this now? Oh, sure, okay. Yeah. So it was really, I mean, it was really awesome the way it all worked out, and just the people there are amazing. I'm 2022 was a bit of a cluster F from an employment perspective, but I kind of ended up where I am now, and that's good. Like, so you can't really hate the journey if you love the destination. So, so I ended up in a good place, and so I'm happy where I am, and that's all. It's all good in the hood, And
it's funny. I just thought about this. I should have told you at the beginning. It's okay. You can say fuck. We don't care. We're set up to be explicit, so it's all good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
that's the beauty of having a show that nobody listens to. You can pretty much just use anything.
Well, now you fucking tell me.
There you go.
Fuck you, Sam.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Fuck you, Sam. All these guys are here listening.
Right.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So, anyways, we had Josh Vergara on the old show, and he did the same thing. We got like halfway in, and I was like, dude, you can just say bullshit. It's fine. He's like, oh, really? I go, yeah, just let it rip. We don't care. And he's just like, okay. And then it was like his eyes were like, oh, okay, cool. It's just like F this, and that's cool, and I don't give a crap. And I was like, yeah.
It's funny. Back in another life when I had a band, I never wrote a song with a curse word in it. Okay. Like I would swear like a sailor, when I was, but I never wrote a song with a curse word in it because I didn't want that to be my legacy. Like I didn't want the people, oh, he's the guy that says fuck a lot. I didn't want that. And so like that kind of carries over to, and obviously like whenever I would write anything, that's verboten. But like even podcasting, like even on my own show, I tend to, my problem is once the door is open, I have trouble closing it again.
Right, kind of staying moderated. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so like
see this podcast. There's no door. It's just
It's
just open.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, so like I would do a couple of times. I'd be like, I'd be really super conservative about it, and like just try not to do it. And then like there a couple of times I've been like, what, this is my show. I can do what I want. So I would drop like 1, and then like the next show would be like 2, and then the next show would be like every other news story. I'm just like, okay. And like I've had people write in and being like, dude, you got to do that. I'm like, no, you're right. That's cool. I need a monitor. I need like a monitor to like be like, all right, dude, we need to take it down a couple of notches.
We have the 3 allowable pieces of profanity in your 45-minute show. All right, you've now exhausted that first 35. Yep. Like build in like a timers on your phone. It's like, oh, you've been watching, Snapchat for 5 minutes. You should really take a break, right? And have some like the profanity filter. But
well, fucking shit, assholes. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
There's our 3.
And actually, I hadn't. This is the first time I really looked at the website. And if anybody's curious, it's slashgear.com. There's a lot of stuff here. It's just not about. I mean, there's some vehicle stuff. There's some gaming stuff. There's some health and science stuff. There's some reviews. This is pretty nice. Like I'm
general life.
Check it out. And for anybody else who's listening to the show, our illustrious group of listeners and people who participate, check it out. Check out Slash
Gear.
Absolutely, check them out. It's a pretty good website. It's laid out.
Also,
it looks like it got something for everybody.
Also, check out Benefit of the Doubt.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well,
while you're at it.
I'm always a big fan. Like I said, anybody who doesn't have that in their podcatcher, you need to go do that right now because it is well worth the listen. It's really good.
I mean, we're kind of pulling a U a little bit where we're like a little bit less on the podcast feed, more on the YouTube feed now.
Right.
So but I noticed you've got the paid version of StreamYard. So good for you. We're still rocking that free version. So we still got the.
I don't know. I mean, and honestly, it doesn't cost a lot. And since I don't have a whole lot of other overhead, I figure, hell, why not? So, And I mean, we could probably leverage the free one, but I don't know. I got so used to paying for it, I just pay for it. So
that's what.
Oh, good.
That's how subscription services work. But yeah,
absolutely.
So and actually, I moved my podcast from Libsyn over to Acast, which is now free. So I'm thinking about like reinvesting that into StreamYard to get the fancy schmancy logo in the corner and stuff like that.
Absolutely, and it's funny because they put this podcast so at work. We have like podcast picks, so that the person's like, hey, we have these slides at work, that when you walk down the hall, they all the stuff going on and where I work and stuff, and they're like, hey, do you want to put your podcast on? We're like, sure, okay. And so I gave them that logo, and I got feedback from. First of all, they didn't know I had a podcast, and second of all, they were like, you look like what's with the face? I said, well, fuck you. It's like, no, not
my face, man.
But like, really? Like, you're gonna come with me with that? That's kind of a bad take, right? No, they were like, no, this the look on your face, Joe's just looking, and you got this kind of like smirk, irritated. I don't know really what it's like, the Mona Lisa of terrible smirky looks, right? And
Sam's actually taking a shit in that picture.
Right. I'm actually getting shot in the ass with a trank dart, and it's like right before it starts to kick in. Right.
I wasn't going to comment on the face, but now that you mention, I was going to be more like, nice photo, Coldplay.
Right,
what's going
exactly. On there? Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, we had another season, right? So season 2, and I was like, that was the first picture that came up. I was looking for a picture. I'm like, that's good enough. I don't again, like I said, Mr. Beast, we are not, and we are not the Joe Rogan Experience. So it wasn't like who really cares, right? And so I figured nobody really paid attention until people at work were like, yeah, your show seems interesting, but I don't understand your look. You look like you're a little irritated. I'm like, oh, just whatever. Just don't listen. I don't.
Just take a picture with a smile. Use an iPhone, and you can copy it. You can copy. So my most recent show on the Benefit of a Doud was also about CES, and so Cliff was building a thumbnail for it, and he said, thank you. He's another Lego live stream. I just built the Star Wars trench run diorama. I just got that one done.
Oh, nice.
So
that's cool.
And I just found a $50 gift card in my desk. So I'm currently deciding which Lego set to build next. But yeah,
that's nice. I like that.
They're so damn expensive, though, aren't they? They're fantastic with it.
They really are.
My mom would go there and go, holy. So I used to get the little small, like 10-piece little truck or car, a little truck. They had was just like maybe a gas station kind of thing. That was, my buddy had the whole big, he had like the Death Star kind of stuff. I was like, my mom's not going to spend that kind of money back in the 80s. Like,
to me, like a set really has to kind of grab me. Like there have been like really cool, really big sets that I'm just like, I'm not into it,
Yeah.
So like it has to have something about it that grabs me. So
absolutely.
That's,
that's cool.
What were we saying?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry.
So Cliff was building the thumbnail for the CES thing.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, can you send me a picture, preferably against a solid background of like you looking up and tired? And I'm like, sure, but I don't need a background for that. So I busted out my iPhone. I grabbed a quick selfie and I did the portrait copy thing.
There you go. Yeah.
And I sent that over and he's like, wow, that's pretty cool and awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah.
That feature is cool, I gotta admit.
That is really cool. I'm gonna miss it. I gotta switch over to Android soon. I'm coming up on my 6 months. So I gotta switch back over to Android. But I think my iPhone's probably gonna be my secondary phone, like always, just because my daughter's on an iPhone now and I have no other way to track her other than with Find My. So
yeah,
I think I'm just gonna have to keep it. And not to mention, I have AirTags on everything.
Right.
So
for us, since we have I'm the Android and my daughter, and then my other. So we use Live 360. That's no sponsorship. That's what we use, and so that's
the family thing. Yeah.
So it's platform agnostic. Plus, it's also you can track an entire family, which is kind of nice. So that way, if they're on an iPhone or whatever, and I don't actually pay for it. I'm sure they have some paid features, but for just the basics, and really it's just for my daughters. It really just comes down to a safety thing. If they're driving.
I'll have to look into that. I mean, like the tracking that you can get from Find My is actually really creepy. Like I have literally been sitting in my car at our Great America theme park watching my daughter's Dot walking through the park.
Wow,
and it's like
specific,
it's like, wow, that really shouldn't be. So but yeah.
Because on that note, I was thinking of getting an AirTag for when I go on holiday this year and put that in the case. So rather than waiting at the conveyor belt, I can just track it and be like, oh, there's my case.
It doesn't go that fast. So
damn it.
It was funny because when we were coming back from Disney last winter, we were on approach for our landing, and I was just for giggles, I was looking at the Find My because our AirTags were on our luggage, and I'm like, one of our bags just fell off the plane. It's still back at Target. Like,
uh-oh, I think they just threw it off the damn air. It's like, oh,
yeah,
shit.
So it's not as bulletproof as all that. And I don't know if you've watched any of those videos. Like I tried to stalk my friend using air tags and stuff like that.
I've seen that.
Tom Scott and Mr. Who's the Boss did a couple of videos like that, which really kind of go to show like it's not really a stalking. It can be. It absolutely can be. And but like if you know that you're being followed, it's not as automatic as one might think. I've been wanting to do a video of myself, like doing something like that, but I haven't found the right format, and it seems like everybody always does it better than me. And I'll watch their video and be like, oh, that's a good idea, I should do that. But
it's already there. Like,
it would be a very ambitious project, and I don't have that kind of time.
So yes, but we appreciate. Speaking of that, we appreciate your time because I know, like I said, I reached out and you've been always very gracious to come on the show, and we really appreciate it. So for folks who are in the chat, please benefit the Doud, check it out, do some subscribing. You will not be disappointed. It's a great show. He does a lot of good work. Also, Splash Gear, check out the website. They got a lot of stuff. If you're not a phone person, if you just want to read about just regular science, they have a health section. They got reviews too. Check them out.
My next review is going to be a vacuum cleaner.
There you go. Is it the Dyson?
Cool.
It is not.
Okay. I saw the Dyson, and I have one of those. They're expensive, but pretty slick. I like Dyson stuff.
It's all about the Henry. What about Henry?
Yeah, this is just a little battery powered upright thing that I got to try out. It's kind of fun.
So yeah, check.
Do you guys have Henry Hoover?
Henry Hoover.
Just quick.
Well, we have Hoover.
We have Hoover.
Hoover. Is that?
Have you heard of Henry Hoover?
No.
And Hetty? No. I thought that went over both your head.
It did. It did.
Well, the Hoover part I got, but I was like,
it's old school.
See, Joe, we were trying to walk past that, but you just nailed it down. You wouldn't let us go.
Not having it. It's the best Hoover.
Right.
It's the best Hoover, honestly. It's got a little face on it.
Oh, really?
It's called Henry. Look it up. It's been going for a long time. And there's a female one called Hetty.
Oh, when I was a kid, I just remember the Kirby salesperson, right? The guy used to come to your house and sell you the $8,000 vacuum cleaner. They would sell you in parts the Kirby vacuum cleaners. They were actually kind of almost like, but my mom had one, and I was like, how much did we spend on this? But that was in the days too of actual encyclopedia salespeople that would come to your house and so that was the thing back then.
I had a friend who used to sell Kirby vacuums, and he had to do a couple of demonstrations at our house just to meet his quota. He'd come over and be like, "Can I just show you how to use this?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Yeah,
and
whatever.
He'd spend 20 minutes going through the stuff. He's like, "Okay, thank you." And that was it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just thought it was weird when I was a kid. This guy shows up with all this stuff, and my mom bought I remember back then it was early '80s. I remember being $1,000. So my mom's like, "Mom, $1,000 for a vacuum cleaner?" She's like, "Yeah," but she had it for years. But I was just like, I don't know. It just seems weird that you just buying $1,000 vacuum cleaner. Some dude just showed up at her house.
She was like, "Yeah," and then regurgitated everything that he had just said.
Yeah, it was just
she'd got the whole pitch.
I just remember my mind was kind of burned in my hard drive and just $1,000 vacuum cleaner. I was like, okay, sure, Mom, whatever. So anyway, that's going to be our show for today. Thanks for showing up, Adam. Appreciate it. And like I said, we'll put links up to all your socials and all that kind of stuff. And
up here or down there,
somewhere. Well, with show notes, we don't know. We just again, we're not exactly a professional outfit around here. If you know, we kind of wing it. But we'll take care of you. We'll make sure that we take care of all your proper links.
I mean, Sam, I've been very lazy with thumbnails recently. Yeah. Lenny's literally going to track me down and kick my ass.
Thumbnails?
Yeah.
Well, you're already doing better than we are.
Right.
Well, I haven't recently.
It's actually the content we suck at, so we make good thumbnails, but everything else is just kind of like...
Well, I wouldn't say they were good. They're there, but...
I mean,
they do a job. They do a job.
Yeah. Some kind of thing. So, shout out to Cliff. He's on the thumbnail war path right now. So
absolutely,
I'm all for it.
Yeah, Cliff's a fantastic guy. Appreciate it. And make sure you reach out and say hi to Cliff every once in a while. I see him pop a note on Twitter.
Cliff Thomas.
Yeah, Cliff Thomas. Yeah, good dude. Yeah. Smart guy. Good dude. Solid.
I've seen him on Twitter. I think quite a bit.
Absolutely.
He's quite active on Twitter, isn't he?
Also, check out our sponsor, right? Check out our show on the Purposely Pixel YouTube channel. That's where we are. And also, buy yourself a skin from extremeskims.co.uk. Stuff's on sale.
Absolutely.
Buy some stuff. Don't buy anybody else.
They skin some shit.
They skin some shit.
Last week, wasn't it?
Oh, I know. God, what a terrible way. I was like, that's response. Like, yeah, they'll just skin your shit. I'm like, really? Oh, God. Jeez, why do I even bother? It's like I try to, just when I think I had this all figured out, I just throw skin your shit out there. And that's okay. Maybe one day I'll get this figured out. Maybe when I'm ready to retire, I can actually.
I might put that on the thumbnail.
Please don't.
Skin some shit?
Yeah, skin your shit. Just skin your shit. That's a little open.
That'll grab people's attention.
But Adam, we appreciate you taking your time out to come on the show. And that's our show for Sunday, the 15th of January, 2023. Again, check out our website. Check out benefitthedoud and /gear.com. Check those out. And Adam, any final thoughts or words? So we appreciate your time and thanks for coming on again, sir.
Well, I appreciate you having me. It's been fun, and I'm always available for a pod. So feel free to hit me up anytime.
Will do. We have a lot of shows this year, so we'd like to have a follow up and see where you're at in a little bit of time, and definitely have you back on the show. We'd always love to have you on.
I'd like to see where I am. We'll see.
Right? Who knows? Maybe in
never
time
know.
you'll actually have your EV, and we can talk about that and your adventures of your new purchase, and then that would be a fantastic show.
Yeah, let's book that in. That's when we're going to do it. That is when we're going to do it, Sam.
Right. When we find out that now, he'll post pictures of it. We'll check it out. We'll have him on, and we'll let him know. Hopefully, it'll be a fantastic purchase, and you'll get a lot of kick out of it. So it'll be cool. So for myself, for Adam Doud, for Joe Hickey, thanks for tuning in to the show. Again, be good with your tech. Enjoy yourselves. Have a good, safe week. Stay hydrated, per Jimmy the Dragon, and be excellent to each other. And we'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.
Peace.